What's up, everybody? My name is Carmen. We've got the whole crew here today for the first time in quite some time. We got Nothmar, Sean, and Ray. We're going to move through the last 2 weeks. We did not have a chance to get together last week. And like I said, it's been a while since the four of us have been on a call together. So here we go. We're going to jump in. At a glance, the last 2 weeks. Because we've missed quite a bit, I wanted to just break it up. We'll talk about collectibles, and then we'll talk about comics. The last 2 weeks gave us a few. Initially, going through it, for some reason, I wasn't very impressed. But now that I'm looking back at the last 2 weeks, I guess if you're a new user and you're happy to find and you wanted some like fresh collectibles, this is a great 2 weeks. We had Jurassic Park, which dropped today. We'll talk about that. We've got the Harley Quinn, black, white, and red. We've got the Decon drops, and then we've got the Vader drop. So we'll just jump in. Ray, we'll start with you. Of the collectibles, how do you feel about them?
Hey, I like them. I think they're maybe this is just my hope that they're leading into MTL, but it seems like they're ramping up some of the drops again, right? Like they're dropping. I mean, we kind of knew Vader was coming, but look, I like them. I think Vader is really well done. We don't have the same like Electra problem of really messed up stuff. At least I haven't seen anything yet, right? So I really like the Vaders. I like the lightsabers. I think there's a lot of stuff they could easily do with it to make them very showroom applicable, right? Like things that everyone's going to want at least one. And then as a Jurassic Park lover, seeing the movie thousands of times, I will end up with one of the T-Rexes. I love it as a drop. I don't know that I see it like an investment opportunity, but I love Jurassic Park. And I thought about using my Jurassic Park mug tonight to sip my drink out of, but I will, I'm a big fan.
Nice. I bought a T-Rex and took 2 pictures with it and then sold the T-Rex because I just wanted to see how it would look in AR. And I was like, whatever. If I lose $1.
It's just 2-1. Yeah.
Like if I lose $1, I don't care. Nothmar, what about you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the drops, I believe I agree with Ray. I mean, the drops are great. The Star Wars drops, how can you not love them? And the diversification of like the Decons and the Harleys. And then the first, what do you call this? First Thanos and Drax and Kamala Khan's. You know, if you're a collector, hey, it's great stuff, right? So you know, it's a good way for if you're a new collector and you see these drops coming out, it's very diversified. You're gonna get some interest. I mean, I bought a few, but I'm mostly focused on getting stuff from the marketplace. When they go down in values and price, then I get them cheap, you know. So that's my target. But definitely, you know, it's good. They're dropping and they're still consistently giving stuff, getting products out the door, and you know, looks okay from a product point of view.
Good, Sean. What about you?
Yeah, for me, it's like it's good. It's really good and really bad, even though it appears really, you know, just really bad. Like Nothmar said, what other company in the NFT space is releasing NFTs damn near every single day and selling out every single time? Like, that's hard to do in the physical realm. They throw away so much product in the physical realm because it's almost impossible to sell through a product launch. Depending on if, obviously, huge products sell out all the time. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying a lot of stuff doesn't sell out usually. But VeVe just keeps selling shit out. I mean, constantly. I don't know what's happening. We're in a bear market. How are these things still selling out? Like, even with the ones that appear that aren't going to, where there's like thousands left, you know, you check a couple days later and they're still sold out somehow. Like somebody came along and was like, I'm just going to buy a ton of these. Or there's more people buying than we think. Like, if we're in a bear market and these things are selling out, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think
like really
the fact that, like you just said, that we're in a bear market and these things are selling out sort of speaks. I mean, it speaks to VeVe's creativity. It also speaks to, and Sean, you've mentioned this before, how much money some collectors have and are willing to invest. And we saw that in a couple different places this week. So the Decon drops were interesting. Not all of them sold out. I think the Decon thing also blew me away in that I don't understand. If it's a blind box, I get why people would buy and then sell at below drop price. But Decon was one of those weekends where it was like, hey, this is just for fans of art, like period. Like this is just for the fans of these artists. If you're here to make a quick buck on the Decon drop, you're you're probably going to get burned. It just doesn't make sense. I think we've talked about this before with like the Gondek drops and with the Ron English drops anymore. Like, you really just have to be a fan of these things if you're going to buy them. Like, I'm obsessed with the Cozy and Dan art. I follow them on Instagram. I like their story. They're just like a couple in Japan who really is only interested in making art. And the fact that personally I can buy an NFT to help them fund that and create more art, like, I just want to do that. Like, I don't want to really make money on those. And we saw that with the Decon stuff, I think. Go ahead, Nothmar.
I love all that art stuff too, right? But for me, I think there is understanding the market though, right? Because a lot of, I don't hate as much the flippers. There's a lot. I mean, we flip too, but it's part of the market. So we know that a lot of them will try to get the big ones or the low mints right away, and then they'll dump the rest. So knowing that there's probably, I don't know, what is the percentage? I'm guessing 20 or 40% are going to flip. You're going to get deals, right? So like I just saw one it was like, I don't know what the list one for one of these decons, right? There's like, they're down to, the list price was 99 for that vulture and it's now 36, so, and it's pretty much across the board, unless it's like one of those really ultra rare ones that everybody's trying to hit, they'll drop the rest, right? So there will be deals. So I think understanding the market is for a collector. If you just want to collect, wait for people to dump it and then buy them up, So.
Right. That's a great point.
And they're releasing cool stuff like Darth Vader, Thanos, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
So like,
they're cool,
and
right?
it's cheap.
Now
it's cheap. So like if you believe in the platform, there's lots of opportunity.
Now the Vader drop was interesting because it sold out, and that's pretty much still up. Like if you bought that at the drop, or you got lucky and caught it at maybe 70, you're still pretty much up. If you went with that across all of the collectibles, right? Regardless of the one that you bought, this is one of the few collectibles that if you click the buy button and got one, you're in the black, which was cool to see. I think Vader, there's that, you hear a lot of clamor, like, is Vader equal to a Todd? Is Vader equal to a Superman? Is Vader, and I think we're going to see that sort of shake out moving on, because there really aren't as many of him as like a Superman. And I'm talking about the animated one, of course. So I think, time will tell. We shall see.
I'd be careful. I think a lot of it, because I did see a lot of people pumping it in the big groups, in the VeVe group, so and Twitter. So when there's a lot of pumping, there's a lot of dumping, right? So I'd be careful.
I will say this. Todd seems to hold its low right now pretty hard, and Vader does not. It consistently, it does pump back up, but every time it pumps back down, it goes down a couple hundred more.
I need a second Todd so bad. I need one so bad so I can play. I want to play the swing so badly. But
there's 3 Vaders too, which hurts it. It's just it's the reason why Superman's so sought after. I'd probably say from a collector's psychological standpoint, not from like anyone's like personal opinion, but from like deep within why somebody would seek after it and not know why they want to spend their money on it. I would say it's Superman, because it's so easy to isolate as that being the first appearance. It's just the one. But with Vader, you got to think, do I want to set? Do I just want to get the uncommon, maybe the common, or do I get the ultra rare by itself and not get the common and uncommon? And you already have buyers' confusion at that point. So a Superman just feels like solid as hell on this platform.
I think that's a great point. My plan is actually to get a couple common Vaders. I think if the ultra rare Vader skyrockets, then the common's going to be right behind it. So you have a much lower risk if you get a couple commons that you can flip as you go up, instead of the one ultra rare that you have to hope explodes. So I'm with you, though. The fact that there's 3, it's diluted.
It's a lot like the Spider-Man collectible in that regard.
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
it's why it fluctuates down so hard sometimes. I mean, I've seen that Spider-Man collectible down to $150.
Look at it now. Right?
And pump back up to 300 in the same day.
Now, speaking now, the other collectibles, the Harley Quinn, I think, is the first one that we kind of all took a step back and we were like, man, I don't think this will ever sell out, because I think people who just didn't understand VeVe jumped in and went crazy and bought a bunch and then realized, I think if it was a blind box, it would have sold out, or would have had a better chance of selling out. But I don't know why DC or any other company would move forward with anything that's not a blind box really anymore, because I think this is what happens, right? People just don't buy the ones they don't like, and
well, the Common's still not sold out.
None of them are.
And yeah, anytime I say when VeVe sells
I think the
out,
UR
I'm referring to the-
UR is sold out. UR.
yeah, anytime I say that the platform always sells out, I'm always referring to the comics because that's basically all I buy. The collectibles, like I said from the beginning, and you guys know I did. I was just like, something bad might happen with those, just because like there's nothing to compare them to, and people are simpletons. Like they're just like, I don't know, it's probably not worth anything now. I was just crazy before.
Yeah, but
like,
even the UR, it sold out. The list price at 90. The floor is 66. So people lost money on top of that, right?
Yeah.
So,
I'm in that camp. I got a UR, but I have hopes that if it pops, it'll be back over list price at some point. It is a Harley Quinn, but I am one of those. I liked it. It's all right.
I think if
honestly, I think statue collectors might end
also,
up on
I bought
VeVe.
my gyms. I bought my gyms half off, so I'm still in the green. I think $45. It sells for 66. I still am in the green.
Now, I like the J. Scott Campbell one for $20. Like, if it goes to 20, I might buy one just because I'm a J. Scott Campbell fan, and it's his own. I think it's his only collectible on the app, as it stands. And then finally, the Jurassic Park collectible. I will say this: the UR that roars is awesome. Like, I'm not gonna buy it, but it's awesome.
yeah.
And like I said, I bought one for $15 so I could take literally 2 pictures. And I got really upset when I realized that I thought for some reason I'd be able to like go outside my fence and then place him and then come back into my yard and have him be like behind my fence. But it doesn't. It just pulls him through the fence. So I got like cranky and then just sold it for, I think I bought it for 15 and sold it for 15. So I paid $1 for some goofy pictures. Now, the comic books for this week, we got 5, or for the last 2 weeks, we got 5 of them. Avengers 4, the Tarzan one was very interesting. Captain Marvel 14, Invincible Iron Man 55, and all new Marvel now .1. What are our thoughts? Do we like anything? Did we see anything that we didn't expect?
The first cap also. The first cap, Silver Age cap too, right?
Yes, that was Avengers 4.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the first Silver Age cap. Sean, what did you think about the comics over the last 2 weeks?
Man, I mean, from Theory to Avengers 4 to, there's just so many big books they released. Thanos. If I wasn't moving right now, I probably would have injected another 5 to 10 grand into the platform. I'm not gonna lie. Like I probably would have put some big money in just because the prices for what's coming out right now. I mean, versus the money I've already invested, I'd be a fool not to do it. I mean, either it's gonna work or it's not. That's how I feel. It's either you're here and you think it's gonna work or it's not. Because the prices. I mean, a key like the first appearance of Thanos for if you bought gyms half off. And you go by that train of thought. Some disagree with it, some don't. I'm not saying it's true or not, but you're buying a $2 item. Like if you buy 100 of them and it goes bad, you lost $200. If it goes up, you made thousands. I mean, there's so many other gambles you can take that are so much worse than that in reality. I could go on forever about what people do with terrible behavior and money.
The roulette wheel gets me every time.
I'm going to.
People will go throw like $10,000 on a blackjack table, but they won't risk $200 on a freaking like high probability return. Like
next Sunday morning, I will be in Atlantic City playing craps. I'm a $3. Like I will all day go a 3-way crap bet all day.
Play the pass line and call it a day.
You know what I mean? So I think to your point, Sean. For sure. Like some of these were absolute slam dunks. Nothmar, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, if I was coming in new and I was stacking, I would definitely stack the first Thanos, first Drax. I would stack Captain America because they're relatively okay. I mean, I bought a few Captain America, but I think I'm waiting for it to go down a little bit more before I stack maybe some the Kamalas. I bought a few, but I don't know if I would buy a lot. I would put all my money stack more on the Thanos and the first Captain America books, if I was stacking, which I'm not right now. I do have probably 10 copies of each though, but if I was like stacking like the good old days, I would have definitely bought 50 copies, right? So
I love how
Right.
stacking for you, like stacking for me is buying 10. Stacking for you, like not stacking for you is buying 10, and stacking for you is buying 100.
this is not stacking. This is just I can't help myself. I have to buy some.
Right. What about you?
I would say like for me, like it's just participating when I buy 5. Like I'm just like I'm gonna participate and then I buy 5. But
there
like
you
that's
go.
bad
There you
behavior
go.
because sometimes I shouldn't be participating. I'm just like stop
Yep.
participating.
I am participating. Yes, I'm participating.
Hey, look,
Yeah.
I thought they were good. I like the Obi-Wan because I wanted to read it. I actually haven't bought the new ones yet. I'm trying to figure out which one. Right now, because I'm buying the gems half off, it's hard. Because Kamala Khan is a $2 book if you get the half off gems. But it's hard not to then look at like Fantastic Four #1 for 25 gems because that's also a pretty good deal to me. And so it's trying to right now. I'm trying to balance the newer books for $3 and $4 like Inhumans. You got me. The Thunderbolts are coming. Hopefully Yelena comes back out, right? But it's hard for me to balance all these newer books that I can stack nowhere close to the MetaBear, but it's hard for me to balance that with my desire to have some Fantastic Four ones. And right now they're just so cheap compared to what they
And what
were,
would you
right?
what would you say is a better idea from like an investment standpoint? Like increasing, say you have a big position on something.
Wait, we can't get to that yet.
VeVe, would you?
That's part of the next segment. We can't get to that yet.
Oh, sweet.
So
Let's wait on that.
That's going to be part of our thing. So
Sweet.
the only thing, before we continue, the one thing that I noticed, and I think Sean, you corrected me. I didn't realize what the big deal was with Tarzan, and the drop was more limited. Correct?
Right. It was just had a really low minting, and I think a lot of people just in the lull of things probably missed that.
And I definitely missed that. And the other thing about the Tarzan book is it's the first public, like non-Marvel book that we see. So it's going to start to sort of set that groundwork. Like I'm curious if because we have this Tarzan book, do you see a Boom Studio show up?
Someone call Tinian because he's got his own website now. Just let Tinian start throwing
I'm thinking that they're going to license Dynamite stuff, the stuff that's easy to get IP for and cheap. And they have a lot of stuff, really. Like they have a lot of stuff that's recognized that isn't huge, but super recognizable, like Tarzan, like Green Hornet, stuff like that. And stuff that would keep people talking and buying and doing stuff. Nothing that would like increase the platform really, but it's stuff that would obviously they have. That was a Dynamite thing for a while, wasn't it?
That I don't know, but it makes me
Burroughs?
wonder: do we see issue 1 of the boys? Like that's the question, right?
Right, exactly. That'd be crazy. Like, what if
I would love
Amazon?
Department of Truth to be
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Now, the only other thing that I thought was really interesting, we haven't seen this before. They decided to pull the trigger on Captain Marvel 14 and .1, right? So you got.
I love that they did that.
Yeah, and what's wild is like my personal opinion, Captain Marvel 14 is kind of a scam. Like it's barely a first appearance. Like that's like I've gone through the book several times to find out where she is. And it's not super easy where, at least with Inhumans 5, like there's her silhouette. She says, I'm the Black Widow. You see her in multiple panels. We can get into the Gambit first appearance all day long argument. But like Captain Marvel 14, it was a rough sell. So I almost feel like they did people a little dirty where they like people who didn't know went in and bought like maybe a bunch of Captain Marvel 14 and then .1 came out, and then they were like, wait a minute. I thought this was I don't understand. And
they still can do 17 and do Kamala Khan 1. So there's like, she has 4 first appearances kind of. Like, it's such a complicated book to collect, and I collect Kamala Khan. So, like, it's a strange character to
Actually,
collect.
that was one of the reasons why I kind of held off because of all that ambiguity. It's like you have to gamble which one is the best one. At the time, years ago, I said, I don't like this. They're gonna they're playing games with us and just like you're gonna roll the dice, right, to try to get the best one. So I didn't like that.
Yeah, you think of it as a learning lesson for these people, though, right? That's a cheap lesson. $2 to learn,
You get it
to
cheap,
maybe
yeah,
go
no.
research a first
Oh, no, if you got
appearance.
it cheap, definitely. I would go.
Yeah, it's better than learning the 180 versus 181 lesson.
That's true. That's a $5,000 mistake if you get it wrong.
They should do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday release where it's Wolverine 180, 181, and 182.
That'd be dope.
All I know is I sold all my 181s. I'm on the 180 bandwagon now. I bought my first one.
That's fair. That's fair. Now, all right. So moving on, let's talk about the top. So we'll do because we started with comics, and that was Sean's question. We'll start with comics. Which 3 comics do you think will see the most movement first based on new consumers coming in? So, for a really long time, we were talking about why MC1 is like always, Marvel Comics 1 is always the first book to buy. But, if I'm a new collector, or I'm 15 years old or 20 years old, and I've got $10 or $15 or $100, I can't afford an MC1, but I do know comic books, so I might jump on something else, and we might see some serious movement on those books. So of what's out right now, which 3 books do we think will see the most movement first? So I think, Sean, that question for you was to Ray. So Ray, we'll go first with you.
Look, I have to rely on what we've seen all the past few times. I think it's Fantastic Four 1, MC 1, and UF 4. I think those are the 3 gauges, right? I think before we start to see a real big market shift, you're going to see the big books move first. I just think that's the case because as the smaller books move, everyone's stacking. I said this. I think we were trying to talk about this earlier, right? Like my problem is like people like Nothmar. There's Nothmar, awesome, but there's like 50 of you out there that are all stacking 100 of these books for $2 a pop. And so as it goes up, everyone's like, well, there's my 100% profit. They're just going to make these massive walls. But I do think there's something to be said for the blue chip items moving first. It happened in January as Todd started to move. And we're not talking collectibles now, but UF4 flew up there. FF5 flew up there. FF1, MC1, all those shifted. And then the rising tide rises all boats. That's what I think is going to probably happen again. So I think we probably see the money pour into, and there's so few on the market, right, Carmen? You talked about it before. There's like 100 UF4s out there. All it takes is for 50 people to come in, and then you're looking back at like a $200 book, right? So I just think there's so many collectors that already have their hands on these season 1 comics from last year that they move first, and then everything, all the keys that we've been stacking will slowly start to follow right behind.
All right, Sean, what about you?
That's literally the same books I would say. I would say Fantastic Four 1, MC 1, and Ultimate Fallout 4. If you see Ultimate Fallout 4 start moving, everything's going to start chasing it from behind. That's even semi-adjacent related, like ASM 1, any ASM book, any maybe Black History key that are tied to Miles Morales as far as culture goes. Like any of that stuff is going to start chasing it. And I think, like Ray said, like Ultimate Fallout 4, multiple times now, not just once, not just twice, but multiple times now has went down to 20, 30, or 40 gems and then went back up to 200, almost 200, like 150-ish. Like that's happened so many times now, like 3 times just since I've been on the platform. And most books don't recover like that, but Miles Ultimate Fallout 4, it does. So like if that can't recover, nothing else is going to recover in the comic section, in my opinion. Like if you don't see Ultimate Fallout 4 recover, nothing else recovers.
Okay. Nothmar, what about you?
See, I like deals, right? So I like to focus on the Grail deals, and I'm probably going to shoot myself in the foot because I wanted to keep this undercover. I definitely would chase the Grail deals like Ghost Rider, Marvel Spotlight. I think that's like 20s. I definitely stack up on that one. That's cheap. I like the what do you call this? Where's the other one?
But why do you think they moved first? I mean, I guess that's
because they're cheap. I think they can get to the level of 100, and they're right now they're 20s, right? So everybody who's like, there's only a few people who will pay like 80, $100 and stack like 10, 20 of them, right? But if you get that's cheap. Strange Tales, that's my other one. The first Doctor Strange, that's 20s, right? So that can go to 100 too. So I would stack on that one. And then Daredevil #1, that's 30s right now. So that is a cheap mega grail that I could think can hit 100 quickly. And then once it balances, of course, the Spider-Man FF1s will probably go higher than that too. But like because these are so cheap, it's easier to stack. I like stacking. So if you want to stack the bigger grails, maybe even Deadpool, right? This is like, I don't know, is it 15 or 20 now? That's like mega cheap for a grail. And, X-Men 129, my favorite, they're super cheap. People will jump on the cheapest ones, but I like the Ghost Rider, the big ones, right? The Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange, and Werewolf by Night. Those three are the three grails that are cheap, under 20 or under $30. That are grails that I think are cheap.
They're all under 20 now. Some of them will say almost under 15.
I wasn't sure if it was all.
So I think what's crazy is Strange Tales 110 is one of those, is a good example of like, I think I didn't get it on drop, and then I think I got it from the marketplace almost immediately after for 16, and it's pumped as high as I think like 25, and it has not gone below 16.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of floated around there. But I think so, Ray. I think the question you had was like, why do we think certain books are going to go first? And like for me, like I think the top 3 in my head that I think are going to be first. So I'm envisioning someone who just put 20 gems in the thing. Like I think the things that are going to move first are sub $20 buys, because to Nothmar's point, I just think there's going to be more of those people getting into the app. Now, don't get me wrong. I think there's going to be whales jumping in too, buying stacks of stuff. But I just think once the MTL comes and you're now giving people, it's easier for people to get a ticket to the dance with $20. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking like New Mutants 87, especially if Cable shows up in the movie and those stars align. But like New Mutants 87, New Mutants 98, that Vengeance 1 is a great buy. I think any of those like sub $10 ones, I think people might want to be looking at, because I just think the chances of Vengeance 1 doubling in value versus UF4 doubling in value overnight, I think, is a little slim. I could be wrong, but that's just where my head's at right now. Only because those books I think are so cheap. And
yeah, so it's kind of two parties. It's basically kind of like, do we think common sense is going to prevail, where it'd be better to buy cheaper books first, or do we think psychology is going to prevail, like where people are just like, man, this platform just got liquid money now. I just heard about it. They just published a public article that said, MTL's live in like however many countries. Whoa. Fantastic 4 1s on here. Whoa. MC1 1s on here. I heard they're creeping up. Let's just say if the stars align, I could see people buying one book. If they just had $80 or $50, they're like, I better get this because I've heard before it was at $700.
Right. That's fair.
First Captain America is like $11. NYX3 is like $6-7. Come on, dude. That's definitely
common sense. I believe you guys. But just sometimes I just wonder if common sense doesn't prevail, because I've seen such scary behavior on this platform that I don't want to bet on the fact that people are going to make.
Well, to be fair, because like if you go in the VeVe group, right, majority of those people are not comic book collectors, and they're all just pumping, right? And they're hearing some people. There are some people who are telling them, and I see you guys too sometimes telling them, "Hey, this is a grail, this is not a grail." So, but majority of them do not know that, so they're all just like following the pump, right? So once we see more savvier collectors, then you'll still start seeing some action, I think, right?
Now
The only
Yeah.
really say Miles, it's not my bag, but it's because he does have movies and he is in culture, and he's a lot of what I talk about. How like when a character is tied to culture and tied to art in a whole country, let alone internationally, it has a huge effect on the psychology of purchasers. And right now, Miles Morales is talked about a lot.
Yeah. The only other thing I would add is for like especially the lower books. Like I have books already posted at certain sell thresholds, right? Like Nick's, I think I have like 10 of them at 20 something or whatever it is, right? But like I think again, because there's so many people stacking, be ready to sell and buy fast. I think you're going to see a bigger fluctuation. But in the same way that new people are going to come in with 10, I feel like there's a lot of people on the sidelines right now just waiting. And again, I just need 20 people to buy a Fantastic 4-1, and I'm back to 180. And now I've got a tripled up book, right? And I think there's enough big whales that they're going to shift that first. But maybe not. I don't know. I just think it's harder to move the floor on the littler books because people like Nothmar over there with 150 of them maybe he just wants to let go of 5% of his stack, which is like
NYX
books.
Which
Yeah,
one?
whatever it may be,
Oh,
right? Like
I was like 300.
Now, so
I'm counting on people with 5 or 4 of stuff is what I'm counting on, and that's why I keep saying like the Grail books too for what people buy first, 3 to move, is just because like I just feel like that's gonna go that way. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
now, aside from the comics, we are seeing some crazy movement in weird ways with the collectibles too. So in that same regard, which 3 collectibles do we think we see move first? And then why? Nothmar, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean collectibles, it's tough because like I have to say that a lot of it is like dropping hard. So I mean the ones that are cheapest that are keys, I mean off the top of my head, I mean Storm and Black Panther and Thor, those are first appearances, and then I think you can get the commons for all 3 of them for under $30, right? So it can easily if things get hot, they can probably double or 3x like easily. So I think those 3 are first appearances. I would put more money on Thor and probably maybe Black Panther because they're big names and they have their own movies, right? So those are if you want like a first appearance that's cheap, like get them for $20-$30, and maybe there might be upside once the pain is gone.
Sean, what about you?
3 collectibles. Honestly, I think just with comics too, I feel like it's gonna be 100% based on what's popular and what people are talking about at the time. As long as like it's not being comic infested yet, like collectors rushing to the platform. If it's just based on hype and it's just based on the crypto space and the NFT space, I'd have to say it's going to be more expensive stuff again that they can move around that other people can't. Like I'd have to say it's going to be like Spider-Man common. Like it's going to go from 150 to 600 at some point, in my opinion. Or like, what else is that big to me? Like, I think they're going to be Marvel stuff. Like, it's going to be Marvel statues. I think nobody really knows about anything else besides that. Like, if we're going to count on a lot of people coming in or like people paying attention, it's going to be something that everybody has to recognize. I think it's going to be like Marvel statues.
Yeah, that makes. I think I'm right there with you. Aside from a few different DC things, Ray, what about you?
Todd, I mean that's my bet, right? I think that everyone, like when new people come in, you look at the market, there's just stuff littered everywhere from every different kind of IP across Marvel, across DC, across Indie. But when you go online and you start looking at like when people say, "Hey, what are you looking to buy?" Usually Todd's in the name. You are Spider-Man, common Spider-Man. I think that you'll see. So if I had to pick, I think it's a mix of Todd, Superman, the Spider-Man collectibles, and then probably one of the golden moments, C3PO at 720. I think everyone's just waiting to get those at a discount because everyone knows those are going to be. Whenever you hear people say like, "Hey, what's going to be the $100,000 collectible or whatever?" Everyone's like, "Well, Todd or Superman or the ultra rare Spider-Man." So I think everyone's waiting on that. Yeah, so I just think between those three, again, you're going to see all those shift and double. And then people are like, all right, now that those are out of my reach again, similar to like November, what's that next tier? Well, then you've got, Storm being another big one, right? Then you start seeing that trickle down to all the other like second tier keys, I guess. So I don't know. I think we see the big collectibles reign supreme again once MTL's back done.
Yeah, now it's weird. Like I have my grails, like my golden moment stuff, but I really think the first movement I think that we might see from new collectors. I think Thor is a great price point at, I think it was as low as 14. I think he's the cheapest Avenger, and the statue does not look bad at all. Thor is super affordable for anybody that just wants to toss some money into it and let it sit. I also think anybody who wants to spend $100 might go the extra mile and buy a Vader. I think we might see Vader continue to sort of creep up and move. And then I'm going to get weird. I think the lightsabers, to Ray's point, if you have a showroom, you're probably going to want to display your lightsaber. I think that is just like I'll say this. I can't think of anything more vocal from a nerd perspective than a lit lightsaber in your like space. Like someone walks in, they see a lightsaber, like, oh, this guy's a Star Wars fan, right? Other than maybe the movie posters. So maybe they're in there too. All right. We've sort of hit these a little bit in one way or another, but it's fun to circle back because I had mentioned this before. Vader was not in this conversation, a month ago, and he is now. How to spend 1,000 gems as we get more comics and we get more collectibles. We can either just still try and buy a Todd, right? if you want to do that, or we can sort of look at the lay of the land and maybe diversify if we think we need to. So if you're going to spend 1,000 gems, how would you spend 1,000 gems? Sean, let's start with you.
This is what I think about a lot. Whenever I want to put money into the platform, if it's going to go from outside to in and not just from within to another thing, do I increase my position in something I already have a lion's share in, and I know that I'm in like the top point percentage in, or like even if you're not, if that's what you're just chasing to have a certain amount to make you feel comfortable. Is it better in this market, in a VeVe market, which nobody knows because it hasn't existed long enough for anybody to know shit about it, and they're lying if they tell you they know, is me having 250 Miles Morales versus 150 way smarter than me having 150 miles and then 100 of something else, or 50-50, 150? What would make you function better in a VeVe market once they open up? Like once it's an open up free market, like if what they say and it happens, where eventually we could make offers and sell collectibles as sets and do all these things they've talked about in their AMAs that they say these are on the list and they are things we want to do, and trading and transfers and all that stuff's back. What's better is a person that controls something that can have like security and knowing that anytime something's listed, there's so few of them because you hold the extras. Like if there's 10,000 users and there's 10,000 items, but you have 100 of those items and there's always only 50 listed, you have more than listed. You have more than the market. So like, what's better? And I don't know. I really can't answer that anymore. I'd like to think buying Ultimate Fallout 4 is at 35 or 30 smart. But man, if I can keep stacking a Nyx at 5 or 6, or a Luke Cage at 6 or 8 or 10, like which is the best answer? And I can't tell you.
Nothmar, what about you?
Yeah, I would split it up. Like I think that's along the lines what Sean was saying. I mean, I like splitting it up only because like I'm too worried about putting everything in one high-end NFT, and with the market, if it crashes, you lost a lot, right? So, but I would consider I'm eyeing the Avengers Golden Moment Iron Man. It was 400. I was getting close. Somebody posted it for 350. I was debating getting it just to get my Iron Man back. So that's the one that I think is a deal because I like deals. And then the rest, I would look into some of the comics that I mentioned. I definitely would stack, Ghost Rider. I would stack Strange Tales. I would buy more. What are the other deals? What did I mention earlier? I think Luke Cage's. I like Luke Cage. I would get X-Men 129s. Maybe some Spider-Man comics. The first Doctor Doom is getting cheaper too. So some ASMs and some more Daredevils, some Werewolf by Nights. From collectibles, I would like on top of Iron Man, the Golden Moments. Definitely, I might stack on some Thors, maybe some Flash because they're cheap. Maybe some more Moon Knights, and the rest are all for fun, like because I'm not sure about the value for some of these, like if they're gonna move up. So I would focus on the ones that would get value. So those are some of the ones that I would focus on.
Nice. Ray, what about you?
So I'm probably splitting in half. I don't know where MTL is going to go. I think there's good arguments to say that there's not a massive dip. I think there's arguments to say that there will be a short-lived big dip, right? Like, I don't know. I think there's good arguments on both sides. I'm probably spending 500 now. 500 I'm going to save until MTL comes out, hopefully at the end of quarter two. But I don't know. For the longest time last year, right? Like, I don't know where the market's going to go. We always said if you're a new collector and you don't have the big three, grab the big three, talking about comics, right? Like, that was every time we spoke back in January, right? Between, like, I don't know, October and January. I have a good feeling that's, again, like, it depends on what you think is going to pop first. So I would like to be able to catch the early ride as a newer investor, right? So maybe I get, with the first 500, maybe I get, like, the Marvel Comic 1, and then look at some, again, Silver Age keys that I think have good. Strange Tales 110 I think is great. UF4 is great. All those, right? So I'm probably putting 500 into the comic sphere. And then once MTL comes out, ASM 1, that season 1 collectible common that's on the very front page of VeVe, I think is hard to beat. But I think that, for us, it's easy to say we want to buy all these other things because we have our core position already built, right? Like, all of us have, I think, at least one MC1, one FF1, one of the key collectibles of the Spider-Man Season 1 variety, right? Me and Carmen love the Uncommon because he's upside down. But I think that's probably where I go first if I'm a newer person. I think I'm probably trying to build a core portfolio and then picking up the $6 keys as they come. Now, one thing we didn't talk about, Sean and Nothmar, I'd be curious, and Carmen, wherever you go, but, like, I'm not buying drops. I'll be totally frank. Like, I'm out of the drop game right now. I love to gamble, but I can gamble on an MGM app on a tennis match, right? Like, I don't know that the odds are that good with the drops right now, especially the comics. So if I have a 1K gems, I'm probably not getting a drop unless I see giant size X-Men 1 or like a Strange Tales 110 UF4 style book, right? Like, I'm probably not getting a drop. But I'd be curious to know if you are spending that 1K, is any of it going towards drops that are not like mega grails in the physical sense?
Yeah, I'm at a point right now where I will only grab a drop. So, like, if I really, really love the book, I'll, like you said, I'll do it. But for the most part, I'm waiting until the market opens, and then even then, I will only, like, my New Mutants 87. My rule in my head was like, only buy this book if you can get it between like $2.50 or $3.15. Was like, for some reason, my threshold, and it was like, do not buy this book if you're for more than $4, right? So it was kind of that. So if I see a book that I think is some sort of key and it's at $1.99 or $2, I'll buy it because that damage isn't really too bad. Like I bought that Captain Marvel 14 just to see what would happen, but my rule was like I'm only paying $2.50 for this thing, so I can sell it at $3 and still like make a profit almost, right? So it was like that was kind of my rule. But like for the most part, man, my 1K gems, I've realized that you kind of have to figure out what your position is. It's almost like a real-time strategy game at this point. Like, are you buying for utility? Are you buying for growth? Are you buying for like short-term growth? Are you buying for long-term growth? Like, if you're a new collector and you're like, I just want to buy something and then put it in a box and then look at it in a year, I would go with, I did a quick list, and this shakes out to roughly 1K gems. Jim Lee Joker, because it's an FA and it's super. It was just, I was so upset. I was gonna grab it at 250 and I didn't. And then that day they're like, oh, the Joker sequel is gonna happen, like blah blah blah. And now it's at 300. I think it'll probably stay around 300 for a while. But the Joker FA, 2 Fantastic Four ones, so you can unload one if you want. 2 MC ones, so you can unload one if you want. A common Spider-Man collectible and a common Vader collectible. That's pretty much where I am for like the long-term, like personal collection type collector. For the utility people, if you have, if you plan on having 1 million Omi and you're bullish on like rental possibilities, the lightsabers, the DeLorean, and the hoverboards.
I knew the hoverboards were coming back. I was waiting. I was just waiting.
Now, I mean, I bought another Marty because I like, it went as high as like 650.
Keep the dream alive. Keep the dream alive.
It went as high as 650, and I was like, now it's as low as, I think it was as low as $50, so I grabbed another one to flip. But the DeLorean, and then like you said, Ray, the sabers, like, if I could make it, if I don't know what you would do with utility, because again, we've talked about this, game design. Now you're going down this really crazy rabbit hole of like what the metaverse looks like, and will it be like Roblox, and will you need a lightsaber to break a wall or fight someone or whatever. So that's like the crazy spec people. Go ahead, Sean, what would you say?
Oh, I think you're muted, Sean.
You're muted, I think.
You're muted, Sean.
We can't hear you.
Oh, is he there?
Oh yeah, the dogs were barking. That's why I muted it. But yeah, imagine if the stuff became like you could port it into a game. Like imagine if your lightsaber could literally, like, you had an avatar's upper half of the body type thing, like they do at Facebook, or Facebook integrates with it, or whatever, however they end up doing it, and you could grab a lightsaber and hold it in your hand. Even if you couldn't use it to play a game, what if you could just grab it and walk around with it?
Yeah, like I watched the meta conversation between Mark Zuckerberg and Alex Honnold, and you're just, when you look at those sorts of moments, you're kind of like, well, I could definitely see where, again, as far as utility is concerned, either in-game or, we've talked about the QR code for owning certain things, but that's a whole other conversation. And then if you really want growth, to Nothmar's point, like those deal books under 20, if you just want to stack those, Strange Tales 110 and like all that other fun stuff. But that's kind of where I am on that.
One really interesting point I think you made too, like if you're a utility-based buyer, like the Star Wars sabers could be used in any kind of video game, right? It doesn't have to be a metaverse. Like the DeLorean, you're thinking you're driving in some future metaverse. That's far out, right? Like we know that is years away. But you could take a Star Wars lightsaber. It could be in Fortnite as a melee weapon. Call of Duty it could be in. It could be in any kind of MMORPG, right? Like it doesn't matter what the game is, but a Star Wars lightsaber just blends right in. So like anything they could possibly imagine as like early integration in that sphere, right? Like that's an easy win because that's an easily portable, I guess, item that just kind of comports with any kind of video game, right? Like you just add it in. It's nunchucks, but you have the skin of a lightsaber. I mean,
they even could have even like as a middle ground, they could even have a code, like where if you owned a lightsaber, you could put the code in, and then you get the lightsaber in whatever game, and that's a way to link it in between the generations, between the new technology and the old.
They're coming out with the new Knights of Dark Republic or the new Knights of the Republic, right? I think that game's coming out in the next year. All they got to do is say, hey, if you have a VeVe account similar to the Disney Plus subscription, hey, you're going to get a code, type it in, bam, you unlock that saber in the game, right? That's all they have to do, and then those things will go bonkers.
Yep.
And if we're thinking of this, come on. If we're thinking of this, give me a break. Like the military was using AR and drones like 20 years ago, and like we're just now talking about this shit. They've been using AR and VR for like 20 years.
Now I think like ultimately it's really what your sort of perspective on what the future of this app sort of looks like, right? Like, and I think depending on the type of collector you are, and I think it just boils down to imagination, really depends on where that 1K now lives. Because as VeVe establishes itself, there's going to be more collectibles that may have utility. There will be a Hulk 181. There will be an AF-15. And then once these things start to drop, it's going to really shift how you're going to spend that money. Like I remember when the ASM-1 comic for me was like the comic to have. And now as things really start to shake out, like I have no interest in owning an Amazing Spider-Man 1 comic book in VeVe. I mean, actually in real life too, but it's just personally based
that's a bold claim that someone came up. Yeah, I mean,
well,
but I'm not. You want this? I'm scared of holding it.
I don't want it. You want this ASM?
I'm not paying 12 G's for a 2.0 ASM-1, right? But I would pay 12 grand for Tales of Suspense 39, right? Like again, we're in this world now where we have to really start to be thoughtful with what we want and what makes the most sense. I mean, to Sean's point, do you just buy UF4? I like if someone was like, hey, you should only buy Ultimate Fallout 4s on this app.
Up to 141.
It's not like the worst advice it's not the worst advice, as opposed to, not to come at anybody's neck, but not to like buy 100 T-Rexes on the Jurassic Park drop and then like again, it just when you see a post where someone's like, oh, I bought 50 T-Rexes with the hopes of getting a UR and then to sell the common at 15, I just don't think that's the best move.
Well, that's the problem with the Facebook group. The only posts that make it to the Facebook group are the ones where they get 5 boxes, 3 of which are secret rares, and like, this is the best app in the world. But you don't see the other like 3,000 people going for 5 to get 5 commons.
We'll see that in the marketplace, though. That's where we get the deals.
And that's the thing. Like, I think it's just the way that we're watching this app unfold. We're starting to see some patterns, I think, and you're starting to realize, like, okay, the next decon drop, it probably makes sense just if you're, you might just not, unless you just want to give the people your money. That's a different thing, right? But like, for the most part, if you just want to, you'll probably find a deal on the collectible you want at the upcoming decon drop, probably, right? Like these are these games that we know we're starting to sort of see.
Well, I think the decon from the last
Star Wars or go ahead.
Go ahead, Nothmar, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say like sometimes waiting even a week or two is not even enough, because I bought stuff like a week and then 1 month later then it drops again. So I was like, I gave up on some collectibles. So decons, yeah, if you wait maybe the next decon or the decon after that, you're gonna get the good drops probably in prices, right? So
yeah. And go ahead, Sean. What were you gonna say?
And what I've done this 3 times now, and it served me really well. And it's maintained a pretty good core position of my 5%ers that I like to collect. And it's kept me really, really close to the line where I want to keep it. Is when Disney and I shouldn't even tell anybody this, but I'm hoping everybody already figured this out. But when Disney or Star Wars ever drops, it is absolutely the best time to buy low mints. Like if you believe in 5%ers at all, people go insane when Disney and Star Wars stuff drops. I've done it 3 times now, and it worked all 3 times, 100% to my benefit. Like I was buying collectibles even the last time to see if it worked with collectibles, because usually I do with comics, and it worked with collectibles. I bought like some Captain America statues, some Deadpool statues, some Storm statues, and I got 1XXers, you know, like the ones that I like to get, you know, because I like to always collect the ones in the 1000s, and they are cheaper when I bought them than the floor is now. So like for me, I don't know why that happens, but people tend to shed a lot of skin during those weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I mean, just to add there, because a lot I have noticed in other groups, there people have limited resources, right? So they all try to dump, and so they can get money to buy the next hot drop. So that's why. And I'm surprised. I do notice some of them sell some of their grills because they think that the other one, the next drop, is a better collectible. Well, and I'm like thinking, oh man, you're dropping ASM1 or you're dropping FF1, so you can get I don't know, one of the decon drops. I was like, okay, I don't think that's a good idea, but hey, we'll be like Sean and wait for them to drop those so we can pick it up, right? So
that's what I do. Why buy a decon thing at 90 when I can go buy like 3 Ultimate Fallout 4s during like Extreme Panic that are all low mints for some reason, and then immediately once the drop's over and the decon stuff's done, all the low mints of Ultimate Fallout 4 are like triple what they were prior, like in the high end of the 5%. Like you'll see ones that are in the high end in the 1XXX range that are for Ultimate Fallout 4. They'll go all the way down to like $50 to $75. Sometimes $40, like during these weeks when something big drops. And then immediately afterwards, you check it and they're 200 again or 150. Like 100 is a minimum. Like, and it's always happens that way. And I don't know why, what it is about Disney products, but they freaking drive people insane.
Yeah, and we're learning that even the first appearance Disney drops now, like, really aren't carrying the weight. Like the Ursula and the Jafar and those, I love them. I love the look of them. I think they're cool, but you know, they were as low. I think Ursula is like a $7 collectible now, right? Now the price point for that wasn't too bad at 20, so you didn't get murdered. But some of them, you know, when you get to some of these price points that are like 50, or what was the most recent one? Was like $120 drop. The Flash and the, well, I guess it's still 50%. So what, I mean, what's six of one, half dozen of another? But yeah, I think just paying attention to
Flash for like 65, like a super low mint, and I was just like, how is this $65 right now? And then immediately afterwards, it was higher than what I paid for.
Yeah. I think to add to that is because there still is a good chunk of flippers also, right? And they still haven't learned that, hey, collectibles, majority of them are gonna drop in price unless you get lucky, you get like whatever, an SR or something. But majority of them crash hard now. So there's still a lot of flippers, right? So hey, it is what it is. Again, it's an opportunity for them to. I actually got quiet now complaining because I was like, oh, I'm getting good deals from these, so it's okay.
Now the collectors, fans and flippers, like the collectors know, like we're seeing different things happen than what other people are seeing happen. Yeah. While like the collectors and the fans are buying, you know, they're like, oh, I'm gonna get a T-Rex. Oh, I'm gonna get an Ursula. I'm gonna get whatever. And I'm not saying that those things aren't awesome or that maybe they have value, but like, do they have predicated knowledge based on history and historical context in an art community that was created by artists and writers over decades, from master to master? Like, no, they don't have that. Like, it's
and I think that's the point here, right? Because like there's a lot of groups that are short-term sellers versus collectors versus investors, right? So because like I you know, our group, I know everybody here is like a collector, investor too, right? But you also collect. But then there's a lot of groups that are just like trying to get the quick flip so they can make money. So I mean, nothing wrong with that if that's their strategy. But there is a lot of groups like that, right? So I think that's part of the market. So you know, collectors, and are you flipping? Are you collecting? Are you investing? You know, that's you know.
Now, before we head out, we got a couple of minutes left. Ray,
we did have one question too.
Oh,
they want us to talk about what's your opinion on the drop coming New Avengers 7, the Illuminati.
So I'll just real quick hot take. I'm not a fan of it. Again, this is another one of those. It's a super minor key. I think it's late to the game and it's trying to capitalize on the multiverse of madness. I think if you want one and you love it and you want to read it, fine. I think even if that book is $2.50, that will be a book that I am not buying at all. That's just me. What about you guys?
I'm right there. One, it's not even like a book you could hop in and read because it's number 7 in the line, so you're not going to understand what happened in books 1 to 7 if you really like the New Avengers. And I'm not going to go into spoilers. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I know enough to say that, like, I don't know where the spec potential is, I guess. I don't even know. But yeah, I'm definitely not going for it on the drop. If it's $2.50, I just think, again, look at the other books at the same price that have a way better ROI that we've been talking about the entire time we've been here, right? Like, there's just so many. We have Nyx at $6. You've got Strange Tales 110. You got Inhumans 5. I mean, there's so many other books at the low price point.
Yep.
Why would you make the play for a New Avengers 7 FA? I don't. It's not a book I'm going to go for.
Yeah, not on the drop. I agree, not on the drop because it's not a first appearance.
Mm-hmm.
But as a collector, I want to get one, but I'm gonna wait for it to get down to $2 or $3, right? Because, dude, when that series came out, it was kind of cool. It's like seeing all of the big major leagues of different teams come together and make decisions, that affect everybody, right? So I thought it was cool from a collector's point of view, and a lot of them, like, that's where a lot of people, like a lot of those characters started butting heads too, because, like, Captain America, for example, he came later. He wasn't there in the original one because they always thought he was too idealistic, that he can't make the decisions that like a king like Namor or like a they would make. And that was kind of interesting. It was kind of fun, like just seeing these guys. When Captain America found out later on, he got ballistic on them. I was like, who the hell made you guys, be like whatever kings or to make decisions like that for the world, So he got angry. It was kind of cool. It's a good PC book. I wouldn't invest in it though. But I would definitely buy it for a collection.
I think the dogs agree. I think that's the dogs barking in agreement. That's what that was.
Now, I will say that this
murderer psychopaths.
Like, if you want from an MPC, an MCP perspective, if you want a super cheap SR, I think you could probably get a secret rare probably for like $50 or $60. I think is my guess at what that is going to end up at. Based on what we're seeing with when like a New Mutants 87 is sitting at like 88 or 80 or 90 for a secret rare, I think you could probably grab one of these pretty cheap as well. We normally wrap up within the hour mark, but Ray, just a quick report on how you feel about Palm and how you feel about HRO.
So real fast, if anyone doesn't know, HRO's next drop is tomorrow. You can register now to try and get a spot. Based on what I've seen, unless I get it on the drop, I'm not going to buy the pack. It's becoming the season 1 pack is way up there. The season 2 pack is but this one, not a lot of first appearances in the pack itself. But I think if you can get one for 50 on the drop, great. Palm, I think, is the big surprise here. There's no MTL, but the back cows are holding firm at 400. And it's only like 5 until it gets to 500. And I think that, again, it's one of those kind of like the lightsaber. You just need the first hint at utility, right? Like, we have some built into it, but I want to see, like, hey, they've talked about Palm has said that the free fandom NFTs, which are also holding value on that secondary marketplace, are going to be able to be burned into new NFTs. I'm hoping that it's the corresponding comic, right? Because like the common Green Lantern is the cover page of Green Lantern 87 with John Stewart, right? So I'm hoping you burn into the comic. We don't know yet. They're holding off. So I think something to look out for is Palm. I don't know that I would invest a lot of money into it now, but I think that the market is strong over there. I think that I would be paying attention to their announcements to see what that utility looks like from there. Like, what are these DC fandom NFTs going to turn into? If there are comics, I think I'm for sure. I mean, if it's an Action Comics 1, if it's a Green Lantern it's a Showcase 22. That's the the legendary one is Hal Jordan for the Green Lanterns, right? Like that's Showcase 22. That's my first. That's my only bet at a Showcase 22 until I can convince Nothmar to somehow trade a Todd for one. I don't know. We'll figure that out later. But don't do it to me. Don't hurt my soul. Don't hurt the soul. Oh God, it's gorgeous. Oh my goodness, it's so good, so good. But nonetheless, so I think there's good things to look. Oh my God. Oh, it's great. It's great. I love them. Oh goodness. But so again,
it has Ray on your name on it. So
I just need Nick's to become $100 book, and I've got it covered. Oh, good. But yeah, so bottom line is HRO, be looking out for the drop tomorrow. I'm going to try and get one on the drop if I get into the registration. And then I'm also looking at Palm. I'm keeping a very close eye out for when they say what those NFTs are going to burn into. It's probably going to come this month, but I'm happy they said that the marketplace was coming in May. It came in May. They've hit all their deadlines. So the company's doing the right stuff, but now it's time for them to make that next step forward. And so I'm going to keep an eye out on the announcements, and, I'll report back if I see anything big. But it's definitely something worth keeping an eye out for.
Nice. Now, speaking of real-world utility, Sean, what's any rumblings on this Jurassic Park, VeVe, NFT, hatching? What's the deal with the tickets?
Oh, you're mute. You're mute.
I bet they just give us a poster. That's gonna be my bet. I bet they just give everybody a poster, and it's
Posters don't hatch.
Now, for people who don't know, explain what you did and how it's related to VeVe.
I actually think that it's 100%. This is going to be something that's going to be happening across all media. I'm talking music, movies, TV, buying shoes.
But what did you
buying
do?
A freaking toothbrush? There's going to be a code attached to your purchases, and NFTs are going to become like receipts almost. They're going to be little miniature contracts, and everybody's going to have little miniature contracts everywhere they go, and they won't even know it. And they're going to make them look cool with collectibles or with memorabilia. But really what you're doing is walking around with little tiny freaking smart contracts, hundreds of them, thousands of them, millions of them. I think Palm, my big question though, going back to the other thing for you carried over with that, because I could talk about that forever. Palm, if they have DC Comics, holy shit. Like, because that's the forefather. Like, that's what, if that comes into the NFT space and Palm literally publishes even a single readable comic, there's going to be a shitstorm of money leaking from VeVe in the black market all the way over to It's going to hurt VeVe a lot if that happens during all this turmoil. If VeVe establishes a market, I think they'll be all right. If the money becomes liquid, but if they miss another deadline and another company starts publishing real live comics, like that's even just like boom, wouldn't even have to be DC or Image. Like Todd McFarlane starts publishing Image comics. He starts publishing Spawn from issue 1 all the way up to issue 100, and he does one every single week. That would make waves because that would signify that this is where everybody's going to start spending money that's in this field of creation. They're not just going to make paper products anymore. They're going to make digital products that are buyable and sellable.
Well, what's interesting, I think, is I saw a lot of, and then when I say a lot, like the minimal scrolling that I've done, when Todd posted his first Spawn NFT, it didn't look like people loved it. And I think what's interesting is when you are, I'll pretend that we're talking, or we'll talk about Image for a minute. When you're Image and you're looking at your demographic consumers, I'm assuming if you're reading Spawn, you're probably between the ages of maybe like 30 and 50, really, when you're looking at like that demographic that was buying those comics then. And they're like, if you're a Spawn reader, you're a comic book person for sure. You're not a casual. If you're reading any indies, you're pretty comic book driven. And the question becomes, are those individuals likely to get into the NFT space, even if they're fans, right? Like, like Todd McFarlane could be making the greatest NFTs, but if his fans aren't going to go into that space, it's pretty futile.
Dude, I'm in both.
You gotta be readable. Without
Yeah.
the comic book, I feel like it's nothing.
Dude, I'm in both the Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld groups, right? Dude, both of them, like when I did post like some of my New Mutants 98 NFTs there, and there is vitriol, from anger from a good chunk of them. So, but I did get some positives. But I went recently into the Todd McFarlane one when he did that drop. Oh man, it was like nasty comments left and right, and I barely saw that many supporters of NFT. And this one, I'm like, I'm laying low right now with NFT. I'm not gonna, like defend it like I normally do. So I just let it go. But like, oh man, it was nasty in the group. They were like saying, Todd, don't do it. Why are you getting in this? The usual, negativity when it comes to NFT. So, a good chunk of those collectors are not believers of NFT, or they're not yet. Especially since Todd only did a cover, it's not a full comic, so that's another.
That's
problem.
the issue for me.
Yeah,
I feel like people confuse the two, and I am a huge separator of the two. Like if you're just releasing an image of something, there's absolutely no utility tied to it besides talking to people, and then somebody else releases a book tied to the exact same price, even cheaper. They sell it cheaper than you, and there's a book tied to it. How is that even the same thing? It's not.
He sold it for
like
40 or $50, dude. Like a full comic in VeVe
ridiculous.
Is like $6-7, right? He sold it for
I can get a secret rare on VeVe for $7 that I spent $200 the same day.
Dude, Liefeld released his like NFTs, I think last year for $300 to $500. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna buy those. So
I think it really draws attention to the generation that you're trying to dial into, the consumer behavior that we're paying attention to, and who we think, you can have fans. That doesn't necessarily mean that those fans are going to do everything that you expect them to do, right? Like, and I think we see that with everything. And I will say this to VeVe's credit, they have been able to dial into a consumer group that is actively participating in ways that I just don't think you're seeing amongst any other NFT communities, at least from what I've seen. And have I seen a ton? No. But when I show people and at what VeVe is, they always take a moment and they're like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. Like there's almost always that. As opposed to, I'm like, well, here's my NFT and it's an image. But when I'm like, oh, you can put this thing in a vault, you can walk around it, and you can read the whole comic book and you own it, they're like, oh, well, that's not what I thought an NFT was at all.
Well, yeah, real quick. Do we really believe that if Todd McFarlane released his Spawn #1 with director's cut images for like a secret rare in the back, or like the black and white cover that's really rare for Spawn #1, do we really believe that if he released instead, actually put work into it and spent another couple months honing it down to a really good release, and he released a $5 NFT, do you think the vitriol would have been near as bad? No. If there was a 50,000 minted comic book with the chance to get a secret rare and it was $5, it actually would have been way good publicity. I think a lot of people would have been like, that's dumb, but it's $5. I'll try it. Like, how many other things have we tried for $5? For $50, people are go fuck yourself.
The good news about that failure, I think, is again, it speaks to what VeVe can do. Todd might just take a minute and be like, you know what? Let me just call VeVe. Hey guys, do you want my IP? Do you want my licensing? Let's go. Let's launch Spawn 1 on your platform and just send me the check.
Oh, but I don't think he's gonna, because he has his own platform too, right? I think he's trying to build with that guy, whatever his name. I forgot.
The smart man would just use the existing platform. Just get a good license.
He's trying to do something with Aoki, isn't he?
Yeah,
isn't that what he's doing?
Yeah. Aoki's trying to make this crazy return.
Yeah, but the thing is, because they're gonna give a cut, right? They're going back to. I think that's the whole point with Todd and like when they split from Marvel, right? They wanted the whole shebang, keep all the profits. So I don't think he would go that route and give like another whatever 30% or 40% to VeVe. So I think he's definitely gonna try and get his own going.
Yeah.
Eventually, we're gonna get movie NFTs or like spawn or like animated show NFTs where you're gonna own like 30 seconds of a clip or like 15 seconds of a clip and stuff like that's been done already. Corporations are gonna do it.
I think for NBA, that's what they were trying to do. It wasn't like first appearance at Top Shot. They were gonna do clips of that.
Oh yeah, that's all.
I think it failed a little bit. From what I heard, it failed.
Way too soon for something like that.
I'm waiting for first appearances, like right, to get first appearance NFTs for players. That would be cool, but not like I think they were doing clips. I think it's cool to have them if they were cheap. I mean, I would consider, but from a lot of people mentioned that the prices crashed.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's about how people can share their content and their NFTs with each other. And VeVe is really the only platform that provides us with an opportunity to uniquely and creatively share what we've collected. And to Sean's point, I think the minute comics go in the vault, you're going to see people not just they're not going to be just I mean, I'm sure some people are going to flex and they're just going to have a giant wall of MC1s, but do not be surprised if people are going to take the time to create images with their comic books. And all of a sudden, you're going to have these really cool collages in the same way that I saw someone make like the Disney D with all of the Disney figures, and they zoomed out and it looked awesome. That's something that's unique to that. Now, that is just for you to display to your friends, but again, it's just a way for you to engage and interact in ways that when people think of NFTs, they don't think of being able to do.
It's probably something to take a note.
Pull your comic books and read them in AR, like with a headset on. I mean, and you're like laying on the couch and resting your back after work. Like, can you imagine in a future where you're in your VeVe library and you pull a comic book laying down and you can have the whole thing panned out as big as the sky and you can look into the panels, whatever controls that Zuckerberg decides are going to exist in that universe. Like, I see so much happening that people aren't, like, the mainstream's going to disagree. I watched so many interviews to see if I was just crazy or not. But literally in the 90s, the internet had a 95% resistance. The exact same thing as NFTs, like to the T, 90% or something like that. And even on national televised TV, people were making fun of Bill Gates and telling him he was crazy. And everybody agreed. Nobody backed him up. They laughed at him. Even David Letterman, like on a David Letterman show, it even happened. And Bill Gates was like, well, someday there's going to be AR and VR and all sorts of stuff. And everyone's like, you're a fucking crazy person. And then flash forward 25 years later. And if anybody invested in anything he talked about on that show, they would be insanely wealthy right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I even found myself, I'm a Black Cat fan, and I have a Black Cat 9, Amazing Spider-Man 194 graded 9.6, but like, I can't open it and look at it. And the other day I was like, I've never read that comic. I don't even know what the inside looks like at all. So,
me too. Happens to me all the time.
Yeah, so now I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I can just open it up in AR or just scroll through it and actually read the comic. And you read it and you're like, oh, that's why these are cool. Like, that's why this makes complete sense.
So I think that's the thing, though, because like whenever I learned, right, never push the word NFT, but push like, hey, I have a digital copy of the comic book, which I can read and I can sell it, right? So maybe if you push it that way, I think more people would understand. And to add to Sean's point too, like I listen to a lot of financial news, right? So I'm noticing more and more news from the bigger news outlets talking about it. So like last week, I posted another one where my old investment firm, Goldman Sachs and Bloomberg, were having an interview, and Goldman Sachs says like pretty much that one of the biggest investments that they see in the future is digital assets, like the metaverse, etc. And I'm gonna lump in NFT as part of that, right? So I think it is one of the big places in the future where there's going to be growth. And
the language that we're seeing now is, like you said, they're saying the word digital assets. They're not saying NFTs, and I think
they're not NFTs, but it's they said blockchain technology.
No, what I'm getting at is they're saying the same thing. They just know that the letters NFT have like a yucky, prickly.
Yeah, the stigma attached to it.
Yeah, there's a pathos to that's not very positive.
Asset or blockchain technology.
But it's the same, right? That's what I'm saying. So that's why I was like, they didn't directly say it, but blockchain technology is cryptos. They said that's mostly cryptos and blockchain technology, but NFTs are a part of that too, right? So so hey, let it ride, right? We know the technology is there. They just don't like the term. Hey, maybe NFTs will rebrand and call them something better so that the community likes it.
They're kind of like social contracts almost. Like they're like many little social contracts because it's like, I believe that this is a Miles Morales Ultimate Fallout 4, and I believe it's worth 30 gems when I buy it. And then they stamp that shit with the time digitally, and they say that's what he said. Like they're little contracts.
Yeah,
like,
and the guy, what's gonna get weird is the creator of Ethereum just talked about soul tokens, and it's starting to get real crazy with the idea of. And I initially thought that it was absolutely insane when they talked about soul tokens. They are NFTs that you cannot buy or sell at all. And once it's assigned to you, you have it forever. And initially I was like, that's silly. Why would they ever do that? And the 2 points that they made an example of is, or the best example they gave was college and universities assigning soul tokens in place of diplomas to individuals who graduate. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of crazy. And then if you're applying for a job, you can just link your token to your LinkedIn or whatever. And that is evidence of your diploma or your certificate or whatever you get. And then all of a sudden it doesn't make sense.
That's a good point.
But
I do want to buy Ray's law degree though. So if I can buy those in like gems,
please take it. I don't want it anymore.
I'm gonna need 3 soul gems in architecture, engineering, and being a doctor in the medical field, please. Thank you.
Nothmar, I will give you my law degree for a showcase 22.
I knew that was coming.
There we go.
I'll give you a low mint law degree.
I'll send it to you. It's in the mail.
It's a 1 of 1.
It is crispy 5%er law.
All right, guys. Well, listen, we have gone way over our 1 hour benchmark. It was a pleasure. It feels good to have the band back together. It's been quite some time.
Hopefully, we'll have more people next week. We have some new guys.
Yes. Hopefully, they show up. So, with that, everyone, good night. Thank you so much for hanging out in the dojo. I'm Carmen. We have Nothmar, Ray, and Sean. We will see you all next week. Have a good one.